The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets, casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many.
Hey, what's up, DFS Army? It's Craig Bennett, aka Cash Cake, coming at you for another podcast. This one titled Finding Your Process. Find your process. It's something that everyone should do. Everyone's process is different. My process is going to be different than Geek's. Everyone has a way they do things, and it's important to have one. You don't know what to improve on if you don't have something to follow. So it's extremely important that you're getting a routine. You have a process that you can show that it works and stick with it. Or you have a starting point of a process and realize, okay, I need to tweak this and that. But if you don't have something that you do every day, it's going to be impossible to fix. And so to get on the right page, you got to have a process. So first things first, stop worrying about things you can't control. How much money other people are playing, how big the bankroll is, how much they win. It's nonsense. Don't worry about it. It's all noise, white noise. You can't control those things. It's a waste of time. They don't help you to get better. They don't improve your process. We all are searching for extra time. Every day. There's only so much time. And to spend time complaining about things like that are not going to help you. So first and foremost, stop worrying about those things. Learn from those people. Learn from who you fear. Learn from who you revere. That's what's important. Instead of complaining about the people that win all the time or people you see in the top of the leaderboard, study them. Maybe reach out. Ask them for a process. Maybe they want to help you. I know everyone here at DFS Army, if you ask them questions, we are here to help. I'll do everything that I possibly can to help you become a better player. And one of the things at DFS Army that we do better than anyone out there in the industry is teach. If you want to go buy a lineup somewhere, it's not going to help you. Might win that day, might lose that day. You're not going to be profitable long term. Learn. You always want to learn. When you stop learning, you're not going to survive in this game. I learn every day. I'm always searching for things. And if you don't, you're going to get run over or left behind, especially in the DFS game. So it's no different, and no different than anything in life. Constantly need to be learning, regardless of what it is or what profession you're doing, or, like I said, a hobby like this, or if you want to make this a second income, full-time job one day. Always learn. Can't stress that enough. Second is, once we establish a process, which I will go through my process here right after this, of how I do things daily on a daily sports like NBA or baseball. I'll kind of go through my process, and maybe that'll help you solidify your own or maybe add to it. But don't change your process once you have one every day or even every week. You got to have a sample size. Start with something simple. Then maybe slowly implement something into your sample size, but give it 2 or 3 weeks to see if it has legs and it's something that is repeatable and is profitable long term. But don't be chasing things. That's the worst thing you can do. When you chase results, recency bias, saying, "Oh, I lost bad that day." This is gambling, man. It's you're not going to win every day at this. It's just part of it, man. I want to see if I'm winning that week, that month, and of course the year. I want to be profitable every week, of course. But the big picture for me is, am I profitable that month? That's the big thing. You're going to have some huge, massive months. And you might have some months that aren't massive, but you need to be tracking your results to see if your process, how it's doing. But you got to start somewhere. If you don't have something you do the same every day, then how can you track those variables? How are you going to be able to decide, well, this isn't working, I need to take this out of my process and I need to implement something else? And so you have to start somewhere. If you don't have a process and you just come do something different every day, you're never going to be a consistent player. And if you have to write down your process and say, okay, I got to do 1 through 10 every day, then do that until it becomes natural. Whatever it takes, have a process. So, with that being said, I will kind of go through a little bit of my process of how I do things. I'm going to use NBA. Again, NBA is coming back July 31st. You could use this for MLB, about any sport. My process is about the same, but daily sports, because it's a grind, I'll use NBA. But again, for about everything I do is about the same. Weekly sports like NFL might be a little different, but generally how I do things is about the same. But for this example of a process, I'll talk about NBA. And what I do is the night before I play, so say I played that night, and after the night is over, after all the games have finished, I will go back and I will check my cash lineup. I think these 3 steps right here are where a lot of people miss, and they want to jump in right of the process of researching that next day. But to me, this starts the process. This is the start of the process for the next day, because this is the learning process that I'm telling you about. Check out how my cash lineup did that night. Was there anyone that I missed? Critique it. Did I do something right? Was there something I missed wrong? Was there a guy really high owned that I just did not get the news on? It's really important to critique yourself like that. Then I'll go look at the winning GPP lineups that night of the high dollar, 150 max GPP, and the high dollar, like $555 contest, the higher dollar entry stuff. I'll look at those winning lineups and kind of study them, see if there's something that I missed, or was I right on the right players but just had the wrong combo. That's very important. Very important. To me, it's one of the most important things. The next is, are you going to play tomorrow? The night before, I checked everything, how I did, blah, blah. Look through, critique myself, check the winning GPP lineup, see how my cash teams did, But are you going to play tomorrow? It's a simple question, you'd think, but it's important. Maybe the next day you have to take your kids to wrestling practice, or you got to take them to baseball practice, and you're not going to have the time to play at all. Just take the night off. It doesn't hurt. If you got other commitments that you're not going to be able to commit to your process, take the night off. It's not a bad thing. Maybe you got date night, anniversary. Maybe the size of the slate's not up to you. Maybe you're a cash game player and it's a 2-game slate and you're like, you know what, this is a good night to take off. We got a 10-gamer the day after. Or maybe you're like, all right, I'm just going to not go with my process. I'm going to throw a few lineups in the next day just for fun, but it's not my process. It's not my bankroll. They're just for fun. I don't like to do that. I like to keep doing the same thing every day. But are you going to play the next day? That's important. Next is determine how much your bankroll you want to spend. Do this the night before. So NBA, it's 10. Generally, I play 3 to 5% of my bankroll in NBA a night. NFL, it might be up to 10 to 20%, depending on, because I'm very cash heavy. But for daily sports, I'm usually 3 to 5% of my bankroll. How much you're going to head-to-heads? We've talked about this in the nausea of, how much you should play in tournaments. How much, some people just play nonstop GPPs, and that works for them. Just depending on how much you're going to play, and then enter those contests that night before. Then you're not chasing, going, oh, damn it, filled when you wake up in the morning or you get closer to lock. I enter everything. Everything I'm going to play, I enter the night before. Put all my head-to-heads out there. Put one max limit on DraftKings because you can do it in FanDuel. I will continue to put more head-to-heads the following day, but that night, how much I want to set, I'll throw all my head-to-heads, my single-entry double-ups, my single-entry, all my GPP, MME play if I'm going to play. Enter it the night before. And then set it with a dummy cash lineup that you took the time to build on your own, just from the knowledge that you know of the sport. No research, just from your own knowledge, build you a dummy cash lineup. I like to do that to kind of see what I've just have learned or I know. And so highly recommend doing that. It'll really help your thought process. And it kind of tells you where you're seeing things before you research the next day. You know, that way you can compare that dummy cash lineup to a real cash lineup once you get it set, and see how well they compared. And then later, the next day, I'll import in my multi-entry GPP plays. But I know that I have a cash lineup that I sat and thought about and put in there, so it's just not random players. I set it. I don't reserve entries. I do this. I set it. So I have one lineup with all the entries. 150 lineups, all my cash lineups is one lineup. That is it. It's easy to manipulate this way. It works the best for me. I don't reserve anything. I enter all the contests I'm going to enter with that one dummy lineup. Then in the morning, wake up. I usually get up pretty early, usually around 6 o'clock in the morning, grab a cup of coffee. Then I start looking at game totals, injury news, spreads, start making a short list of guys I want to start digging deeper into. Start establishing my core early. Either by looking at price or whatever it is. Just that's like you grabbing the newspaper in the morning and reading the news. Well, I like to grab a cup of coffee and read DFS information just early to get my mind prepped of what games are going to be ones I'm attacking. Who's hurt, so I kind of know who I need to look out for. It just gets me my mind set for the day. Then after, around lunchtime, early afternoon, I start making that cash lineup. Always make my cash lineup first. I don't do anything with my GPP stuff. Cash lineup is first. So with NBA, I know there's a ton of news. We get a lot of late news. If it was baseball, I would focus all my morning and afternoon time on my pitcher, because if you don't get your pitcher right that day, you're generally not going to win. So I spend most time on my pitcher. Again, with NBA news, things change. You might not have the same cash lineup you built now until lock, but I'm going to have what it is now with the news and information that I have. Unless there's a questionable tag or a wild card that I need to be aware of, but I'm going to have a backup plan. I'm going to have a backup cash lineup that says, okay, if this guy's out, James Harden is out, then I know I'm going to play all the Westbrook and vice versa. And I'll build a second cash lineup that shows that, and I'll have it sitting there. Always be prepared that second step. Don't be doing it last minute. Like, prepare yourself. Then maybe early afternoon, mid-afternoon, we'll start seeing some ownership projections, start hitting around 4 o'clock, maybe, 3-4 hours before the slate starts. And they're so important piece. Ownership projections are such an important piece because you're going to know, generally, they're never perfect, but what the field is on. And it's so important in any sport you play. One of the most important things is ownership projections. They're going to help you not only decide your final cash lineup, but your GPPs are, to me, you can't build it without knowing where people are going to be at. Because you have to dictate, are you going to be over or under the market, if you want to say, that player? James Harden's going to be 60% owned, which is crazy high. It'd be a small slate. Say he's going to be 40% owned, which could be at 40% owned if it's an 8-game slate or something. Do I want to completely fade him and go a different route? I would jump the field a ton going that route. Or do I want to go completely overweight and almost all in on them. That's so important. It's so crucial. Maybe there's a low projected guy that I'm extremely high on, and I found some great information this morning while I was drinking my cup of coffee on the tweet deck. Maybe it was something. James Harden was going to Atlanta. He likes those strip clubs down there, man. May want to get off of them. Information like that. The more longer you play, the longer you do your process, you'll start just storing little nuggets in your head, and it'll get better and easier every day. But once I get all that, I finalize my cash lineup. Again, I might have a contingency. Things change. If it's baseball, my cash lineup's built generally 3-4 hours before the slate even starts, because we usually have the lineups out pretty early. So with baseball, it's a lot easier. Like I said, basketball, there's a lot of news that night. You need to be on top of things from 3 to 4 hours before lock all the way up to lock. Now, I'm looking for these things for you guys. As a team, as a DFS Army team, we are looking for this for you, and we post it in our chat rooms. So you don't have to look for this information, because I know a lot of you don't have this time. Again, this is just my process, and we post when guys are out and who's the guy to pivot to and all that information. We have all that for you. That's so key to have that piece. And so again, with NBA, it changes, but I'm trying to finalize my cash lineup if there's no news at that point around 3 to 4 hours before lock. Again, if we get news when someone's a late scratch, then I have to readjust. Understandable. You're going to have to do that. All right, I got my cash lineup set and all the lineups I put in. I put that on DraftKings. I compared to what I had the night before. Oh, man, I'm pretty close. Oh, why wasn't I seeing this guy the night before? Study that a little bit. Anyways, cash lineup is in. Then I take my cash lineup and my single entry GPPs are my 3 max, and I adjust them. And when I adjust them, I usually make 1 to 3 adjustments on my cash lineup. It don't have to be that crazy. You don't need to build a whole new lineup for the single entry. But if I can look at, I don't know, maybe a Jason Tatum in that lineup is going to be 50% owned that night. And the Boston guys, generally, you don't know who's going to go off if they're all healthy. Well, okay, I'm going to fade him in my single entry because he's 40% owned, and I'm going to find somebody that's maybe an Aaron Gordon, similar price, going to be 10% owned, but has just as high of a ceiling. And I'll slide him in there. And maybe there's another 2 or 3 pieces. But I take my cash lineup and I adjust 1 to 3 pieces in that for my single entry GPP and my 3 max. Now, if it's a 3 max, I might even put my cash lineup in one of them because it might be the absolute nuts. And then the other 2 will be completely different. It really depends. But that's the next step that I do. After that, after everything those set and I'm happy, that is when I start working on my mass multi-entry, MME, for the next 3 to 4 hours. I'll start with my player pool and I'll identify who I want it to be, who I want it to include, my core 4 that I want to build around in GPPs. It might be different than my cash team. My cash team, might have a guy in there that is I want in cash, but I don't want him to be a core GPP play that night that I want to build around. Usually at least 3 of them are. Definitely at least 2 of them are. But the 3rd and 4th one, it depends. Like he might be a cash core, but GPP core, maybe I want to go way over the field on a guy that I see that has huge potential but is way less owned, and that's how I'm going to capitalize that night. Remember, I did a pod a couple days ago. 50 is the new 150 with how top-heavy these GPPs are. I'm usually going to put 50 lineups in now. I'm not doing the 150 in these high-dollar mass multi-entry contests that are 100K up top, and basically, if you're not in the top 10, you're losing. I'm all about ROI. Still have a chance to win. Again, I won both of the 6-figure hits I hit was with 50 lineups, not 150. So it can be done. But you can go listen to that podcast, and I talk all about it. But this is when I start my MME process. Again, get those core guys that I want to be extremely heavy on. Identify that player pool that I want. That's when I start writing my notes as I'm working on my MME. That way I can understand where I'm going to be then I'm just adjusting those percentages, and I'm constantly building for the next 3 to 4 hours. If I have guys that are questionable, right? So if we know a guy that's questionable that we're not going to know until closer to lock, then I need to build a second set of CSVs of 50 lineups that takes that in consideration and label them. When you're done, do 2 sets. So I have my, James Harden, he's going to be a core play that night, and I have 50 with him a core play. But then I build another 50 as a contingency because he's questionable and he could be a late scratch. I want to have everything that I can take advantage of and offset already built. So I have a Westbrook set, and he's sitting there, and a 50 of him. And that way, if I have to swap to that last minute, I'm not scrambling to build 50 lineups. Again, this goes into investing in your DFS. If you're trying to do this from a cell phone, an NBA, good luck. Have a desktop where this stuff is sitting on there, where it's very easy to pull one of those CSVs, plop it in, you're good to go. Very important. And again, from that, just keep tweaking those percentages until you're extremely happy. I won't upload anything until about 30 minutes before lock, because I don't want my first upload to be 5 minutes before lock and then realize there's an issue with DraftKings ID number or something with my files corrupt. All that work I did would be down the drain. So at the 30 minutes before lock, I will load my first CSV with all my mass entry. Again, we have tutorials at DFS Army to teach you how to, if you don't know how to upload your FanDuel or DraftKings MME through a CSV, just go in there. If you don't know where to find it, ask in chat. We'll help you out. And then those last 30 minutes, it's checking TweetDeck, man. Looking for news. What's that, what are we hearing? Someone's sick? It's constant. It's constant until lock. And if you're playing DraftKings, you're not done until lock. You have to stay up until that last game kicks off. But on FanDuel, it locks. There's no late swap. You're done for the night. So that's another thing. We could even go all the way back to the night before. Do I have time to babysit my lineups all the way until the last game locks? Or do I need to do stuff with the wife or the family? And I'm just going to play FanDuel that night where it locks. It's nice to have both options. But again, that all comes with the process the night before. Don't make that decision now. Well, I hope this helps. Again, it's just a simple overview of kind of my process on day to day when I do NBA. But the thing is what worked for me might not work for you. We all have different lives we have to live. We all have different time commitments. And I urge you, please, we have all the tools you possibly need at the DFS Army. All of them. We're here to help you. We're here to teach you. But it takes time. Build the process. Start somewhere that you can replicate it every day until you fine-tune it. If you don't have time to do the things like I do, and you have a process that works for you that you can fit in an hour window, fantastic. Use that. I'm not saying to follow this, because this worked for me with my time, might not work for you. You got work. You don't have time to do this. You're in bed. Okay, but I have this 1 hour that I set my process, and I'm using all the tools available at DFS Army. And I'm going to take that information as we feed you and build your lineups and build a process, something that's repeatable. It's got to be the same every day so you can realize, hey, this isn't working out because I don't have enough time. So maybe I should cut back and just do single entry or 3 max. I don't have time for MME. Again, start a process. Find your process. And with that, again, hope this helps. Appreciate each one of you guys. Love you guys. And I'll see you in chat. Cash gig out. Deuces.